We've got a jam-packed show here today, you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got to talk about new paint schemes. Jeff Gordon said some interesting stuff. New fan experiences this year. We've got financial statements to look at. Well, it's still going to be fun. Trust me. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric, and welcome again to Out of the Groove. And yeah, like I said, I have a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to be really efficient with it today. It's a full show, a lot of NASCAR news over the last several days that I had to kind of catch up on, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so let's just dive right in. I want to start by looking at a couple real nice new paint schemes that were revealed yesterday. Chase Elliott with a new Hooters car. I really like it. I like the orange this year quite a bit. Also worth mentioning that Hooters has expanded their sponsorship deal. They'll be sponsoring this 9 car for 4 races as opposed to 3 last year. So good to see a small increase from a major sponsor like that. Good looking race car, looks nice. Another driver that made a big announcement yesterday regarding his paint scheme was Chase Elliott's best friend in the whole wide world, Denny Hamlin. And now this one, I gotta say, a little different than what we've seen really ever. We've been used to seeing the mostly purple FedEx cars. Before that, a lot of them had kind of a black base. This one's quite a bit different, but I must say, this might be my favorite of all of them. Maybe I'm making an overstatement there. I gotta see this car actually on track in action, but I like it more than I thought I would. Keep in mind, the 2015, 2016 black FedEx cars with like the blue, orange, purple trim were some of my favorite cars ever, honestly. This is quite a step in the opposite direction, but I still really like it. Also, Denny Hamlin's teammate Kyle Busch revealed one of their alternate M&M's cars for this season. And while I like the other two, this one, I'm not sure the direction. It's promoting, I guess, a new M&M's candy bar of some sort, which, I mean, that sounds interesting, great, but the paint scheme, no. My least favorite part about the traditional M&M's cars are the yellow and the brown. And unfortunately, that's basically all this one is. The red M&M there on the front's got the exact right facial expression for this car. So he basically sums it up. Not a big fan of this one, but the other two, Hamlin's and Chase Elliott's, very, very nice. So let's move on with the actual news portion of today's show. First big story I want to hit upon kind of piggybacks off of something I talked about in an episode last month. Remember that episode I did where Rick Hendrick came out publicly saying that he hopes Jeff Gordon could become the next, leader of Hendrick Motorsports? Well, we got some more details to add to that story now. During his National Motorsports Press Association Hall of Fame induction ceremony Sunday, Jeff Gordon talked about this topic in pretty good detail. When talking about Hendrick Motorsports, Gordon said, "I have so much respect for the organization in being not just an equity owner, but for what they've done for me, what the organization has done for my career. I feel like I owe that back to them to be respectful and try to give all I can back to continue to see it be successful. Even when I stepped away, I knew one day when I stepped away that I would play a larger role." When talking about actually replacing Rick Hendrick as sort of the leader of Hendrick Motorsports, here's what he also had to say. "I love the business side of it. If that day ever comes, I would be truly honored, even though I don't think I could do the job that he's done. I would be truly honored to take that role on." So now this is an interesting development because when I made my video last month, we had quotes recently from Jeff Gordon saying he wasn't sure if he'd be interested in owning a team, but then we had quotes from Rick Hendrick saying that, oh yeah, Jeff Gordon's definitely going to be in his position when he steps down. So those kind of contradicted each other. At least now here we are a month later, it seems like Jeff Gordon and him have had some more productive conversations, and it sounds like now maybe Jeff Gordon is a little more open and a little more excited about the idea of leading a race team in the near future. Now it's worth mentioning that Jeff Gordon possibly taking the leadership role at Hendrick Motorsports likely won't happen for at least several years. Jeff Gordon just signed a multi-year extension with Fox to continue being a part of their broadcast team. And Rick Hendrick is only 69 years old. I say only because that's actually pretty young compared to a lot of these other owners in NASCAR. He still has a good handful of years probably, at the helm, going to the racetrack every weekend, being involved. Rick Hendrick's not going anywhere just yet, at least not from what he says. In my opinion, this is nothing but good news for the future of NASCAR. Like I just said, when a lot of these older owners start to retire here in the next few years, we're going to need a fresh, young group of owners to take their place, people that have a lot of history of the sport, knowledge about the sport, and a guy like Jeff Gordon fits that bill perfectly. So good to know that at least sounds like Hendrick Motorsports will likely be in decent hands going forward. One other interesting note that I found in this article from NASCAR.com, one of the quotes by Jeff Gordon, I thought was a little interesting. I'm not a Jeff Gordon fan, but maybe Gordon fans would find this interesting. Maybe some Gordon fans already knew this. Jeff Gordon also said, when I made the decision to step away from driving, that decision was made 3 years before I actually did it. Remember, Jeff Gordon stepped away from full-time NASCAR racing after 2015. From the sounds of this, it sounds like that was possibly something that was in the works as early as 2012? I've heard about, planning things in advance, but 3 years in advance seems like a long time. I wasn't following Jeff Gordon as closely back then. I don't remember him ever saying anything that sounded like he was retiring, really, until 2015 came around. So, I don't know. I guess that might be interesting if you're a longtime Jeff Gordon fan to know that this was in the back of his head for the last several years he was driving. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that he was thinking about that for so long. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. The Rolex 24 at Daytona, a wet Rolex 24 at Daytona, was run this last weekend as well. The overall race was won by the Wayne Taylor Racing team. It was red flagged with about 2 hours to go and actually ended up finishing under the red flag due to virtually undrivable conditions. But that's not what this story is about. This is a NASCAR show, and one thing that got a lot of NASCAR fans talking over the weekend was the level of fan access that a lot of the Rolex 24 fans got while visiting Daytona this weekend. I saw several pictures on social media, a lot of people tweeting and talking about, just how up close and personal a lot of the access was just for fans with general admission tickets down in the garage area and on pit road. People getting within feet of the drivers with just a general ticket. Like, that's something that, you really never see, especially not in NASCAR's top series. So this got a lot of NASCAR fans talking. Could this be something that we see in NASCAR at some races going forward? And in fact, NASCAR actually addressed this topic. NASCAR has announced a relaxed garage policy for the NASCAR Cup Series this year, similar sort of to what they did for the Xfinity and Truck Series at some races last year. NASCAR is talking about allowing a certain number of fans into the garage area or other, kind of special access areas during Cup Series race weekends during very specific times throughout the weekend. And what I've read, NASCAR is currently working with all the tracks kind of on an individual basis to determine, the specifics. Daytona Speed Weeks currently includes a 2-hour window the day of the Clash and Daytona 500 qualifying from 9:30 to 11:30. That kind of allows fans into the garage area. And then they have another 2-hour garage pass window February 14th before the dual races. So this is an experimental thing that I think a lot of fans who go to these races I think should be really excited about. That is one fear I have though, and I have seen some criticisms that if NASCAR makes it too easy to get behind the scenes like this, it's going to kind of devalue the experience in a way, which I think is actually a fair argument. I mean, if we get to the point where literally thousands of fans are able to swarm Jimmy Johnson or Chase Elliott, it's probably no longer going to be a very fun experience. You do have to limit the number of people, which is what NASCAR said they're planning to do, but still, I think it's a good idea as long as it's done in the right amount. Not sure if I'm making any sense, but anyway, that's just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Last thing I want to talk about in this episode, ISC, International Speedway Corporation, revealed their financial report from 2018 earlier this week. Big shout out to Bob Pockrass, who was recently picked up by Fox Sports for organizing and sharing a lot of this information with the public. Now, ISC, for those of you who don't know, owns many of the tracks on the NASCAR circuit, Chicagoland Speedway, Watkins Glen, Richmond, many more. Now, the first note I want to make looking at ISC's financial reports for 2018 is that they actually made more money off of TV rights deals than they did in 2017. In 2018, their revenue related to TV rights was $255.8 million, which is a 4.1% increase from what they saw in 2017. $255 million came from the TV deal versus $109 million that came from ticket sales. Now this goes back to something we've talked about on the show many times before, the fact that, much of the multi-billion-dollar TV deals that NASCAR signed with Fox and NBC, how a large portion of that does go to the racetracks and maybe a disproportionate amount actually goes towards the race teams. When you look at this report and see that more than 2/3 of their revenue came from the TV deals versus actually selling tickets, it seems like there may be a little bit of an imbalance there. Now, I'm no accountant. Now, I bring this up because once this current TV deal ends after 2024, the new deal that comes in probably isn't going to give the tracks as much money as they're used to, so they're going to have to restructure their business model the same way NASCAR is. It's going to be interesting to see how things change in the next 5 to 10 years. The other big thing that was revealed in this report is just how many seats ISC has been taking out of a lot of their racetracks. Now, this again, thanks to Bob Pockrass for pointing this out. You can just see how ISC has reduced the seating capacity at many of their tracks here by a pretty dramatic margin over the last several years. Now, again, according to Bob Pockrass, ISC's peak capacity was in 2007 when all their tracks could hold a combined 1.1 million fans. Currently, ISC can only fit 683,000 fans at all their tracks. Now, if you've been to a lot of these tracks recently, you might have noticed that a lot of them are kind of ripping seats out and replacing them with like tables, or in some cases they're ripping out whole sections and replacing them with like viewing areas and stuff like that. Things that, I think improve the overall experience for fans that are there in attendance, but ultimately show how NASCAR's popularity has declined pretty dramatically over the last 10 to 15 years. The capacities you're seeing now are pretty much what they looked like in the early 90s. And then when NASCAR blew up and got big in the late 90s and early to mid 2000s, they got up to what I said a minute ago, 1.1 million at all of ISC's tracks. And now we've seen them kind of drop over the last 12 years back to kind of what they were in the early 90s. Interesting how there's such a big peak and valley. I don't know that NASCAR will ever get to that peak again, but I am confident that there is a trajectory up in the future for NASCAR. Now, I see a lot of times in the comments of my videos, people explaining why they don't go to races anymore. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, the racing isn't as good. I see a lot of those types of comments. Personally, for me at least, going to a NASCAR race is still as much fun as it's ever been. In fact, ticket prices at Texas Motor Speedway, where I often go, have actually, I'd say, come down slightly over the last several years, so that's nice. I talk about all this news, I talk about all these reports, not to be like a negative person, not to be like a downer, like, oh man, look at how NASCAR's suffering, man, look at all these seats they're tearing out, it's the end days. And while that's all true, and yeah, stuff we should be concerned about, I think it's good to end the show reminding you guys that NASCAR is aware of all these, and NASCAR is actively making changes. We've already seen a lot of them put into action. NASCAR added the Roval last year, which was a huge hit with fans. They're actively looking to add new tracks and maybe even bring back some old tracks that I think will excite fans and will make more people interested in racing again. Like I said a minute ago, there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and we've seen a pretty big valley and then a pretty big peak, and now we're in a pretty deep valley again. I'm confident that we can get to another peak at some point down the road here. We got a lot of good things, a lot of things going for us, a lot of exciting things about NASCAR. First and foremost, the Daytona 500 is just a couple weeks away. That's always fun. I'm excited. Anyway, you guys, oh my gosh, there's a lot to talk about in this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Check out those links down below. You can also get a t-shirt. If you want to get an Out of the Groove t-shirt, support the show, support me. That is also down near by the description. Also, you can check out that P.O. box if you want to send me some cool NASCAR stuff. I actually just checked out my mailbox the other day, and I got a couple things I can't wait to show off in an upcoming video. So if you want to send me some cool NASCAR stuff, I will shout you out and show it off in a future video, probably one pretty soon. So thanks for checking all those out. And then of course a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you to Michael Harrison at You As The Stars, Mentally Defective, SelfishGifts.com, Cameron James Tice Moore, John Koblenz, Tim Shingen, Jason R. Long, and iFantasyRace.com. As you can see, we've added quite a few new supporters just over the last several days, so a huge thank you to all of you new supporters of the show. And of course a big thank you to all the longtime supporters of the show. I could not do this show without the support I get from all of you on Patreon, so thank you so much for the support. Really means more to me than you can ever imagine, so thank you. And yeah, I've uploaded a couple episodes recently. If you missed any episodes from last weekend or last week, definitely go check them out. A lot of interesting things, a lot of announcements, a lot of fun stuff happening here in the weeks leading up to Daytona. Next week, I think they have the Hall of Fame induction later this week, so that'll be fun. Maybe some news will come out of that. We're gonna have a lot to talk about, I'm sure, on this show, and a lot of good things in the works, a lot of exciting things in the works. So thank you all for your support, as always, and I will see you guys again very, very soon. Have a good one, everyone.